Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be exploring all things base building. We're going to start off with some very basic but kind of rather hidden mechanics or functionality that is within the building system that will really help speed up those hours and hours of fine-tuning your base build. Then we're going to progress on to some of the more crazy and advanced building strategies, formations, and just some other really cool and interesting tips because there's so much in Outpost Infinity Siege that is really easy to miss or just not understand because it's not really explained to the finer degree. So I understand there's going to be people at all different levels from the very beginning to the end game, but I promise you probably will learn something new in this. Definitely worthwhile. Stick around. There'll be chapters so you can skip straight to the points that you want to check out. If you do get anything out of this, please help me out. Give me a like, subscribe, do all the good stuff. There is a lot of weight. Anyhow, I'm Sin Killer. Thanks for joining me. Let's get into this.
I'm going to split this into about 2, 3, or 4 videos just because there's so much to cover and keep the runtime a little shorter than the hour-long videos that we've been doing. So come along for the journey, and this will be the part 1 of the ultimate building guides for Infinity Siege.
Okay, so we're going to start off with some of the really cool tips and tricks just for when you're building. Some of these things I didn't even know until yesterday, so they are very, very helpful. It's going to speed up my progress in terms of when I build my next base. They should really help you. You might know about these already. Just skip ahead if you do, but this is going to be some of the basics to help us understand all the different functionality within the builder itself, which is kind of crucial and time-saving. These won't be in any kind of order, but let's just start. So if you press F, you will note that there's an X-ray. This is super, super handy. It allows you to go down to the very base level and edit that. But what I didn't realize, and this might be a surprise to you, or you might not know this, but you can just hit the arrow key and it shifts the whole X-ray up one level, which allows you to work level by level by level, making it super easy to access and edit a really constructed, well-developed base to the finest degree, because you can cut away all those other levels and just solely focus on the very first level or the second, third, fourth. So pressing the up and down arrow on your keyboard will perform the functionality of zooming down each level in X-ray mode. Super critical and such a fantastic functionality that I'm glad they implemented, because before that I was going and zooming down into the, say, inner crux of my base and trying to fiddle around with that. That, for a joke, that was hell of annoying. Didn't mind, to be honest, but I thought there was no other way. But now you can just go, that was for level 2. That's when I was trying to muck around on level 2. Level 1 was easy to get to because of the X-ray. But before that, I was going into my inner workings of my base and trying to move things around. Super painful. But with this X-ray mode, hitting F, using arrow keys, we have complete control over what we'll be working on. So really good tip. Really like this one. And again, that's just using the F key to access the X-ray mode. The next super helpful building mechanic is the copy paste, or undo and redo, I should say. So this is really straightforward, but just highly helpful. I didn't know this was a actual functionality for quite some time. But what you can do is, say if you've made a few changes, you've deleted stuff, but you actually want to go back, you're not happy with that, well, you can press Control Z, and that's just going to revert all the changes you made. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that can nearly undo every single change you've done within that editing session. So without going out and saving, I'm pretty sure it can almost undo everything. There's also Control Y, which will redo what you've just done. So we can undo and redo using Control Z and Control Y. Super handy. There was many times I'd make a mistake and then I'll just go and repeat the process, building it or moving it, however, but I can just simply undo and redo. Really handy tip that I wasn't aware of at the start, so it might help you there as well. It does say Control Z to undo at the bottom. I'm not sure if that was there when I first started, but it is there now, so there you go. That's probably easy for everyone to know, but again, you can redo undo. Just thought I'd cover that because it's super helpful. We've covered this before in another tutorial, but I just wanted to state this again. When you're trying to connect things in your building, you hover your mouse over the very specific cube you're looking to target, and that's going to really help your attachments much easier to attach things because you're directly hovering over those yellow cubes, your attachment points. It just makes it much cleaner and easier to get things exactly where you want them, particularly when you're trying to line up buildings or doorways, I should say, or walls. And just by moving between the cubes, it just gives you really smooth, clean connecting, quick connect spots. So just something to note there. Before, I would kind of not really pay too much attention, and I was trying to just sort of attach it without thinking too much about these little cubes. But if you do be mindful of the cubes and how they connect, it'll be really helpful for when you build your base. Now, for you new players out there, if you don't know, stairs are the way you get power to your upper and lower levels. Without stairs, you will lose power. If we remove these 2 stairs onto level 3, you'll see that all of this loses power. If we undo those changes, even just having 1 stair, Control Y to redo, you'll see power still there. Control Y to undo again, and there's the power gone. So highly critical to understand that your power is transferred using stairs. Now, another tip that I didn't realize, but using the conveyor belts do not work with your very basic ammo makers. It doesn't work. You need the advanced ammo maker to be able to use the conveyor belts to transport things to your auto feeder and basically make your whole base automated. We'll cover more of that stuff in another tutorial because I'm still getting access to that stuff. But hey, if anyone does want to chuck me a save file of their end game build, let me muck around in. That would be hugely appreciated, and that will help me give some more tips and stuff a bit quicker. But otherwise, we'll be waiting for that tutorial. So yeah, just to note, your ammo maker cannot connect to the conveyor belt. I've seen a lot of people ask about this, so I just wanted to cover that here. The next tip is on your ground floor, you do not need to have any kind of access to your ground floor. You can completely build this out and not have any access. You can fill it through tons and tons of batteries or generators, as you don't need access to it, because you can access your core and end your exploration and add everything you need to into your core tower just by accessing it on level 2. I don't think you can access it on level 3 or 4 from my testing, but let me know in the comments if that's not the case. You can access it from level 2, so you can completely build out level 1. That will make a bit more sense as you get into the game if you are new, because you have to pretty much spend, in most cases, your whole level 1 dedicated to just spamming batteries and generators. Now, a lot of people will also put their material crates in, which are these things, the material crates. Now, just in case you don't know what the material crates do, is it increases your max resource or your limit on this thing here, your materials. So these crates that you build all over your base or under your base, wherever you're building them, are highly super critical to your early game. You want to be building lots of these because that will increase your material, which is used for crafting items and deploying facilities and units. I did not know this at the start, so I was wasting my money trying to get guns and didn't understand what materials importance was, but I'm just telling, but just to highlight, it is super critical to your progress. If you want a fast or relatively fast, good experience in this game, you need to be focusing on material crates, power, and generator, but we'll come to those again soon. And just quickly, so what do you need to build crates? Because if your attention isn't focused on this and what materials that you're after when you're starting this game out, or you're relatively new, or you just didn't know, is that you want to pay really close attention to these materials. So basic material, lumber, which you can harvest from trees, and then polymer. These are all early game superior level materials that are very easy to come across. I'm just going to very quickly show you how lumber works. So in order to harvest power or trees, you would need at least 6 power to be able to do it. So in this case, we have 6 power. We're just going to press E on the tree. That's going to turn it into lumber. Also, just note you can harvest trees using fuel as well. So if you have 3 fuel cans, you'll be able to harvest a tree. Also note you can harvest the smaller trees as well, but they'll give you less. It's more profitable or better to gather the bigger trees. My next build, I will be experimenting with placing all of these all over the top of my base to strengthen and give more HP to my platforms. Because what you can do, the best scenario to get the most health on your utility tiles is by building the amp rack. You can see here by itself, it gives 600 health on top of the utility tile of 900. And then if you stack all these different material crates, that's going to really jump up and boost your health and what it will take to take these tiles down, at least in my understanding. But that's something I'll be mucking around with later, something you can test out too. But you can definitely strengthen your tiles by using material crates. So it might not be the best looking base, but you could make a really, really tough outer shell, moving all your material crates up atop of your base. It'll look hideous, but man, could it be a potent way to really boost your defenses of your base armory, I guess, if you would want to call it that. Now, another one just to draw your attention to is you can go straight to manufacturing from your base to the manufacturing crafting area, and you can just hit escape and go straight back to your base. Previously, this icon was somewhere else, but now it's very noticeable and easy. I just wanted to mention that just to cover this again and ensure you understand when you go into the config mode. This is where you can permanently micro your buildings. So at the moment, I have my core sent to 1. I've got my artillery micro to 2. Other ones, relevant ones, micro to other keys. So the config allows you to click on your building that you'd like to group and then press Control 1, Control 2, Control 3. That way you can micro your buildings. Super handy for when you need to quickly, particularly quickly get your artillery to focus fire on something, as well as to help you micro and get your mines out. You make things that probably won't be used too much more accessible and useful because you can quickly access and micro them. So I highly recommend going into your config mode and just editing and controlling all your different towers to a finer degree, it can really help, especially in the heat of the battle where you need to quickly alter your turret settings for a group, whether you're focusing on getting your smaller turrets to just focus on all the little critters, your bigger turrets to fire more at the medium. This is something you definitely need to consider. And there's a lot of different recommendations on how you would set this sort of configuration up. And some of it will be determined on the actual level or what area you're in. But know that once you set it in here and save this layout, it's going to keep that setting for these turrets permanently. So it's a really handy thing. You can have it set up exactly how you want it without having to touch it or can reconfigure it again once you set it up in the reconfigure mode. Some quick suggestions on your turrets, particularly your CIWS. A lot of people don't run this on max range because it chews up a lot of bullets. If you lower it down, it can conserve a lot more bullets. Alternatively, you can put it on max range and then lower what it's going to hit. You can sort of try focus or prioritize your units a little differently or have half-half. There's many ways you can reconfigure this, but something worthwhile to really hone in on is understanding that if you set everything to max range, you're going to chew through a lot more ammo. It's better to mix and match some of these configurations up. But for me, where I'm up to, I need this to be at max range because I need to hit the apostles, the railgun apostle, as quick as possible. And I'm happy to run around and get all the ammo I need and pump it into the auto loaders. And you can see here, I've just adjusted the priorities a bit. You could even technically put medium units down a little bit, but for my current configuration, I have a whole bunch of other turrets on 2 levels that are just going to be focusing on the smaller guys. And the same again with the 30 mils. I've sort of prioritized them more so on the larger and massive units. But there'll be a lot of debate and discussion on what will work best, but it's highly situational based and your base layout, what your strengths and weaknesses are with your current base build. So there's a lot of things to consider here, but it's highly recommend paying a lot of attention to this, watching how your base performs, what are the weaknesses with its current construction and layout, what will perform better just by changing these values.
So we touched on crates. Now, it can't be a builder's guide or a beginner's builder guide without again mentioning the small generator or the battery. These 3 things, the material crate, battery, small generator, are by far the most critical aspect to your progression. It will have the biggest impact on your enjoyment as well, because if you don't invest more time and resources into getting as many batteries, generators, and material crates, because if you don't and you ignore these or don't focus on these a lot, it will add hours and hours to your playtime, just because you will need to then use less of the auto loot functionality, which becomes a very useful method of being able to procure a lot of loot relatively quickly and save you a lot of time. But the battery, generator, material crate, super important. Focus all your attention on getting those at the start. Don't worry about making your base look pretty or too much on weapons. Just get enough weapons to get by and focus your searching on material crate, battery, and small generator. Now, I highly recommend purchasing all the materials from the shop that make up these components whenever you see them in the shop. Just buy as much as you can, including buying the material crate, battery, and small generator. If you see it at the shop, just always buy those and the materials that make them up. Focus those because they are by far the most critical feature in this game to determine how quick your progress will be and how much you're going to enjoy the game. I've mentioned this before, I just can't stress it enough. Very important to get those early on. Otherwise, you can spend hours and hours and really get nowhere in this game if you don't pay your attention to something critical as your power and your material. And while we're on this topic of material and power, we're just going to look at some of the most highly efficient ways to structure your ground level when considering power, generators, and batteries. Because how you configure this is really important because you need to squeeze and condense a lot in early on to really boost that core power, materials, and your power. So with all those combined, making it highly efficient, compact is what you're sort of desired to do or what you want to do in your build. We're going to jump into that now. We're going to look at the most optimal way to structure in the early game. We'll look at later game a bit later because there's a completely different way you would do it. But for early game, this is how you want to set up your ground floor with your material, battery, and generator. Now, obviously, you could throw the material boxes you could throw the crates on top like I've been doing or doing a bit of mix and matching. Not going to take credit for this. This is something I found on Discord. This was a post by Teach. So thank you very much, Teach, for showing this to the community. Now I'll pass it on. Much appreciated. Okay, so before we break this down, we just need to understand that adding batteries impacts your power. The more batteries you have, the more in power you have. So you'll notice at the left-hand side under power, as I remove these batteries, it's dropping my power. Now, power is so critically important to do good long tours. You use the quick loot functionality. This really will help speed up your enjoyment and your progression. Now, we also have generators. So you'll see this generator here. When I delete it and add it back, this isn't actually increasing our total power or affecting our power in any way. This is purely increasing the core outpost. Now, I'm going to explain the core outpost a lot more detail when I come to the next tutorial, the next part of this series, but just so you can reference this, get a bit of an understanding in this tutorial, for every 100 core output, you will get a 10% increase to your turret damage. As long as they're within the X meter boost field, you'll get an increase to your X boost field. This one I'm not entirely sure about, to be honest. Someone can let me know in the comments. But the other things it does is defense inside the X boost field is increased, but it also increases the area scan duration, which is really critical, or very helpful, I should say. You can scan, it will last a lot longer, help you look for things and spend less power. So when you think about it, if you get 1,000 core output, if you get this number here to 1,000, you're gonna have 100 times turret damage. So this is why this is so critical and so important to make your base way more potent, is increasing this core outpost. How do we do it in the early game? I think pretty much throughout the whole game, excluding a couple other different methods that come a bit more apparent later on. But for early game, which is the focus of this tutorial, is your generators. The other thing I nearly forgot to mention is that your generic panels, they increase your core power. So if you can see here, it increases it by, so if we build these, generic panels, if we click on these and build, I think it gives you 2 per generic panel. So that's another way. Also noting that utility walls will also increase your output, your core outpost. It's going to increase that as well. So keep that in mind. So we have utility walls, and then we just have your normal generic panels. Placing lots of these early on, very, very beneficial to your core outpost. But the other thing that we need to be mindful of is that I probably should have mentioned earlier is the things that would kind of make sense that would require power, say like a conveyor belt. If we build a conveyor belt, that's going to decrease our total power. Similar things for like ammo boxes, they will take power and material. A dismantler, that's going to take power, material. So keep in mind that a lot of the things that would require power will actually draw from your material and power meters. And that's why it is this constant battle of building a ton of them. Because as you build more things, you're going to deplete your power and material. So you'll have to build more generators, batteries, and crates to just offset all the stuff you build on your base that requires and draws material and power. Hope that makes sense. Trying to drive that home. It is this constant fluctuation, but that just gives you a good idea of how that sort of works, that sort of system of give and take. So again, if we remove a generator, say this one over here, we remove it, it's going to lower our core power by 10. If we add it, it's going to give us an extra 10 points to our core power. And that is why you need to build tons and tons of batteries, materials, and core power. Now, the reason you need so many material crates, because as you build things, it's going to deplete your material. You'll see here, as I'm building these things, it's lowering. It's directly impacting how much of my cap and my material cap I have. So if we just build, say, lots of these, you'll see it on the left-hand side, it's going down. And that's why when you build these giant bases, you'll see that under all these giant bases are just rows and rows or lines and lines of these kind of configurations that are very optimal, condensed, and give you material, power, and output derived from your small generator, battery, and crates. Now, as mentioned, later on in the end game, you get these larger crates. So this will upgrade your resource capacity by 650 resource. Wow. Okay. So compared, if we have a look at the small crate, that gives you a plus 40. The larger one will give you a plus 650. If we look at the space and how much they take up. So if we put all these small crates here and then we grab a bigger crate, so they take up the same space. So which one's going to be more optimal? Well, these only increase your capacity by 40. 9 times 40 is 360 compared to 350. But the other thing is this also gives you a plus 10 core output, which is huge. These don't give you any, I believe. Yeah. So that's why later game you would switch to trying to fit in material storages a lot more than you would your small crates, because having a plus 10 core output is huge. And that's why you would see these end game bases that are absolutely staunch when it comes to their core output. So this is the slightly more advanced version. As I mentioned, I'll put this in the description so you can have a look and get an idea of how this one works and how it's formulated. We're going to just take a look at the more basic version. They're pretty much identical other than the bottom level just being full of the smaller crates. So we're going to jump into that one now and break it down. Okay, cool. So here is a quick breakdown just so we can build this together. So you'd put a window down first, then you would put down a utility wall. And on the other side, we're putting down a window. Then on the other side, we're putting down a utility wall. So window, utility wall, window, utility wall. So on both of these sides of the utility wall, we're going to be adding the generator. At the top, we're going to be putting, I'll just make sure that your windows are facing the right way. So you want to switch them like that. So the connector is at the top, So this way. Then you would put the battery at the top. Same again, make sure your window is facing the right way. And remember, I'm not even listening to my advice. Remember to try put your cursor, your mouse on the cubes and then battery on the top. And then you're pretty much just filling this rest of this thing with crates. Material crates will just fill the rest of this up. And the next thing is we're just putting a battery down. Generic panel, we're putting that halfway through. So it's not on the other side. It's not on the other side. It's in the middle. We're attaching a battery to that. And since it's a generic panel, we can also attach another battery at the top like that. Then we're getting a window, putting a battery on the bottom, and then we're just redoing and building this as we did before right next to it. And you would repeat that process, and you would basically fill your bottom ground layer in a similar kind of format. Now, if there is a more efficient or better way to do this, definitely let us know in the comment. But from what I can see, this is probably one of the most efficient ways to build your bottom level, possibly even your second level, depending on how far you're up to. But I hope that kind of made some sort of sense. Again, I'll put this, I'll copy the base layout import into the description, so then you can access and have a look at this in your own time. Speaking about importing and exporting, we're going to look at that next. Just before we do that, for your advanced players who are further into the game, here is another suggested build by Teach. But you can see, I mean, it gets highly optimized when you get into the late game. You just have these huge battery packs and you have the huge material storage. So the layout completely changes. Now, apparently there's a better way to do this using your 3 pillars. You do get the pillars in your mid-level or middle level. So I'll see if I can quickly try this out myself. So we've been able to grab them. Cool. Let's just have a quick play. So pillars cost scrap metal and metal slabs. So easy to come by. We'll just grab 10 of them. Come back to our building and we'll just give this a crack to see how this kind of stacks up. So you can put, this is my first time using pillars, but you can put 3 of them right next to each other. So this kind of makes it interesting because you can kind of utilize this space a little bit differently, at least on this side. On this one, you can put them all next to each other. Okay. I can see why this may be a little bit more efficient depending how you're building your base, because you can put 4 generators right next to each other. Now for the more advanced version, using pillars we'll come back to. But do note there is some methods around using pillars to increase the efficiency of your base level. Say that for next tutorial, but that kind of just gives you some good idea of how to use this process and how you want to build your structure, your first. We're going to do so I'm just going to run you through how to import and export the different base builds. Now this is a new functionality that will probably be changed in terms of how this process flow will work, but this is how it is right now. Keep in mind, it is subject to change, and this is a really cool, critical way that you can import and export your bases. We'll go through the things you can and cannot do and how it sort of works, but we'll just run through the quick initial steps of how to export, import. So for starters, I have my base here and I want to export the layout. All I need to do is export layout, the layout code copied to the clipboard. Now this is important. It's just a quick copy paste of a code that is probably best served put into a notepad and saved. That way it's very easy to share. You can upload it to Discord or send it to your mate or whatever you want to do. So just some quick things here though. As soon as you change your base, you've made any alterations since the last code you sent, you'd need to send the code again. It doesn't update live. Like it's just like whatever your base is right there and then it's copied and it can be imported by someone else and they'll get exactly as it is per that point of exporting. Now just for completeness, so I'm just going to go into a notepad. I'm just going to hit this. Boom, shakalaka. This is the code. So it's huge, right? This is all the actual code of the whole sort of base that you have. So obviously, unless you're a computer, you're not going to be able to read or understand this. But what you want to do is just go save, and then you just go something like that, save it to somewhere, and then just upload that or share that with your friend. And on the other side of this, when you want to import, we're going to import someone's base right now, or try to if I can get a code. Just quickly while we're here, I'm trying to put another video together where I show off some of the best base builds in Outpost Infinity Siege right now, but not having any luck getting any takers. But if you are interested, if you want to take the footage yourself or send me the code for your base, that'd be really cool to make a video on that. Okay, so we've kindly got a code. Hopefully we can use this one. We've got it off Haxcalibur. Thank you very much. We'll just try and import that and see how we go. Okay, sweet. So what I've done, you didn't see that step, but what I've done is I opened the import file, thanks again, and I've copied it. And that's all I've had to do is just Control C, copied it. So it's in the clipboard, and then I've gone import, and then layout has been imported. So let's see if that has worked. This might be it here. This looks much more advanced. We'll see if we can load it up. Now, from my understanding, it's not going to work because we won't have all the components. Oh, okay. Here we go. Holy crap. Okay. You can actually load your, or any base design in, you just obviously won't be able to use it because you don't have any of this stuff. And holy moly, what a beautiful base this is. I am so far from this, but there you go. You have an idea of how the import export works. I thought it was going to throw up an error when you go to import something that you don't have all the bits and pieces to, but it doesn't. You can just import it straight up. Obviously it's just good. You can have a little looky, and I did not realize you could do that. So there you go. I learned something new. I thought it was a bit more complicated than that, but very straightforward. You just export, send it to someone. All they need to do is copy paste it into a notepad, and then you retrieve that file, get that file, copy it, and then go click import, paste it. And there you go. That's just a quick way to do that. Very nice base, mate. Very, very cool. Okay, so there you go. That's how you can share and build your crazy bases and share it with someone. Or if you like another design, you can go and grab their code if they're willing to share it. This is such a fantastic feature. I really, really think this is a really good job. Well done, because it allows us to share and, you know, bring us all together and admire some of these crazy builds. And particularly bases like this would take days, if not many hours. Mine is nothing even like this, and it took me a day and a half. So this side of builds is just phenomenal. A lot of time and effort goes into them, so it's good we can appreciate them. So just quickly, let's see if we can save it. Yeah, some structures lack support, so just so you know, yeah, you won't be able to save it, but you can look at it. That's pretty cool. So when you want to get out, you just want to go give up. That way it will just sort of get rid of that, and you probably won't be, you'll still be there to have a look. You can always go back and have a look, but you won't be able to do anything more than that. That is, unless you have all these components yourself and you're up to the same tech level of your core, which goes up to level 8 or 9, I think it is. If you have all that and you have all the exact same pieces available, then you can go ahead, save it, and make it your own. So that's the cool thing. As long as you have everything, you can make it your own. Just remember, when you want to select the imported one, you'd go select layout, and you can select it here. Now, what I would say to you is, make sure you rename your outpost so you can actually tell which one is which, because if you're like me, you have to go and click on all of these bloody things because you didn't rename them. So I highly recommend just going ahead and renaming them as you get along. Keep this nice and tidy with proper names. So what you'd want to do then is you just want to go out to select layout and just go back to your previous layout, whatever that was at the time. So I've got it here twice by the looks of it. Yeah, in there twice. So we'll go back to my layout, which is this one. Oh no, this is not it. Oh yes, it is. Okay, cool. There we go. But that's sort of a rough process. I just wanted to show you that just in case there was any confusion. Now we're just going to fire off on a few random tips, little bits and tricks and stuff that you can use yourself, or you may already know. Just one quick one now is using your little small tiles to get around the issue where things aren't supported or platforms aren't supported. So for instance, you might want to build something like this, right? But it's all in red because it's not supported, which means you need to put something under this directly. If we can, maybe on the side. Yeah, there. Okay. And that will give this tile support, whereas this other tile is still not, doesn't have any support. But what you can do to get around this is you can replace the tiles, the utility tiles, just with the smaller tiles, and that will get rid of that problem for you. You can build a ton of them. So you can see here there is no support for this, and it is very much you can build on it, whereas before, if you have the normal tile, you wouldn't be able to. And you could attach another tile on the other side, but you'd still get the issue of no support if you don't have any walls. But you can then add one there, or add one to the side here, and then that will sort of cover that issue. Now, how far can you build the cubes before you run into that error? Well, let's find out. Okay, so it looks like you'll run into the issue of not being supported as soon as you probably get one tile over. So just something to note, you can only really get away with this for one tile, but it's a handy trick because it gives you a lot more flexibility in building some random like combinations or structures like this. Now, one of the most important aspects on your base that you need to protect that is oftenly not considered is your stairs. Now, as you can see here, I have on this side of the stairs, I have a, what's it called, armored wall. I have some platforms on top, trying to pretty much hide this away. Now, depending if you're up to the hard lands, you would generally only get attacked from a little bit to the side and from the front. When you come to the hard lands though, you will get attacked very directly on your flanks. So you would consider beefing this up and trying to guard your stairs in your structure as much as possible. There's some other much more advanced ways to hide your stairs, and I'll show you how to do that soon. But something you really need to be mindful of is trying to protect your stairs the best way you can. Now, for the most part, I don't really even need to use my stairs because I am getting around using the springboard. You may have your character set up so they can use the hook shot. That's from Zelda, isn't it? The grappling hook kind of thing. Or you could be using double jump or the slash technique where you have the character that can slash forward. There's a few ways you can get around not having or using stairs, but a really good one, depending on how automated your base is or how quick you need to get around, is just using the vertical springboards and then opting in to protect your stairs. So definitely consider how you structure your stairs, because it's pretty much one of the most critical things you need to protect. Because if your stairs get destroyed, it's game over for that whole level and you will lose power. So it's critical to protect your stairs. So you can see here, my two bottom floors are very well protected, at least from the front, whereas these level 3 stairs need to be much more better protected. Also note, it's very worthwhile building staircases on either side in your earlier games. Probably matters a little bit less late game, but what it can be a great way to get around losing power, because you'll have a backup. You'll have 2 sets of stairs. Now, where you place your core is very flexible, so you can place it in many. The other thing to note, and which is a good idea, is you could potentially move your stairs away from your core tower. What you can do is you could not have your stairs there. You could remove your stairs, have them like one tile out or in a different location entirely. And what you can do is you can actually add extra padding to your core by using your different panels. Now you can do that with the first few floors, but I don't think you can do that on the very top floor. There are some issues or constrictions there, so you can't do it on that floor, but every other floor on the core up until the second last one, up until the very top floor, you'll potentially be able to add it's called extra support. If I remove that, I can then go and grab a armor plated panel, and then I can chuck that on top. You could do that on all sides, I believe, except for the back, but all the other sides you can kind of protect with some extra padding, or armor I should say. So that's just one quick tip there. You can actually build on your core, put some of these right there and use it to beef up your core. Keep in mind though, like a railgun will get through a lot of that stuff, so that's a topic for another time on how to use some other strategies to get around the railgun. So another tip that I wanted to show you, which will just go back to the other base that we were looking at before, just to give some good examples of this, just because I haven't used this in my current base, I need to go rebuild it. And that is the use of using the vertical ramps. Again, they offer extra health and protection on your platforms, but the other thing that they allow, if he has it set up here, yeah, here he does, so you can also use them to angle your turrets a bit more forward, so their fire is more focused downwards. It's definitely not a necessity, but it's a little trick you can use to angle your turret. So handy to have them in this formation, and also because it gives a plus 400 on top of the already stacked panels that you're using. And just another example, you can see he's angled this tower up, and the others are all kinds of different angles. So it just gives you some optionality there, something to consider using the ramps. And also, while we're here, we can check the internals and see that this is pretty much for the most part an automated base. All these different conveyor belts are connected, feeding the autoloaders, the advanced autoloaders, and there'll probably be a place where the ammo will be constructed. We probably can't see it because the X-ray mode, but know that late game you can pretty much have a completely automated base in terms of having to load and refill your autoloaders. All that can be done automatically, and then you can focus on other activities to defend your base.